For more on how the fallout from the grounded Boeing MAX planes is impacting airplanes, we bring in Seth Kaplan. He's founding editor of Airline Weekly. And Seth, what does this mean? Let's start with the U.S. carriers. You've got United, Southwest, and American that have flown some of these. What is the issue for them? How big of an impact?
Yeah, well, starting with United, which you mentioned first, for them, it's been basically an operational non-event. For them, they've got about a dozen of these planes out of 750 planes that are theirs alone, not to mention all the others that are contracted out. And if you look at their schedules, they've basically been able to just replace all that flying for now. They put out an investor note last week saying that if this goes into the summer, where you're kind of at peak capacity, every plane in the air, it could impact them somewhat. But right now, this time of year, you have a few planes parked anyway. They're fine. American and Southwest to greater degrees impacted. Southwest impacted the most. They have 34 of these planes out of 700 or so airplanes. But there, too, they just reached a tentative agreement, an expensive one, with their mechanics, who they had been alleging had been causing maintenance-related cancellations. Actually, more of those cancellations than they've been getting because of the MAX grounding. So if you look at their total cancellations right now, they're actually down today from FlightAware data compared to where they were before the MAX grounding. So these airlines, more or less, will be fine. The other thing, by the way, is that when these airplanes committed to buy this plane, fuel prices were much higher. The importance of a more fuel-efficient plane was even more then in terms of what they thought going forward would happen to fuel prices than is the case today. So for these airlines, you delay a little CapEx, and maybe if delivery is slow, they'll be fine. Around the world, it's different. If you're Air Canada, a bigger percentage of your fleet, you're impacted. An airline like Norwegian struggling to stay alive, different story for them, too.
Seth, let me ask you, will these airlines be made good by Boeing, or how does that work? Insurance? What happens?
One way or another, yes. And it's not usually Boeing writing a big check to these airlines. They never disclose the terms of these things. But, these are airlines that stand to order many billions of dollars in future aircraft from Boeing. So if you look at the past, you and Phil were talking before about the Dreamliner grounding, for example. Again, not necessarily Boeing writing big checks, but you would see a dissatisfied airline suddenly order a bunch more Boeings, whether it was other Dreamliners or airliners like, well, the MAX, let's say, probably getting some kind of discount. So one way or another, Boeing is going to have to take care of these very important customers.
When you look at Canada and beyond, can you pinpoint one area where it's going to be a problem, let's just say for the passengers this summer as things ramp up?
Yeah, Canada, probably in terms of a sizable country where the MAX just makes up a really big percentage of the fleet in the case of Canada, the two biggest airlines. And that's especially true because it's a very seasonal airline industry there. If you are Air Canada, you need to really run up the score profit-wise in the summer because, you don't make money in the winter. WestJet has been struggling, too, for reasons that have nothing to do with the MAX financially. I mean, they'll be fine. They're a solvent airline, but a lot of impact there. Those are airlines that are not going to be able to skate through. I mentioned Norwegian. Some of the European charter airlines, an airline like TUI, let's say, where a highly seasonal airline, and these planes run some missions that they just don't necessarily have other aircraft to replace them. They'll be more impacted. So, too, will their passengers. But there's slack aircraft capacity in the world. We're talking about a fleet type that makes up less than 1% of the global fleet. So the impact here, far more on Boeing than on at least most airlines and their passengers.
Seth, thanks for your time.
Thank you.